is the most advanced tape measure on the planet as far as I'm concerned. It does a ton of stuff, but is it worth the price? Let's find out. This tape measure could literally change everything about tape measures in general. Now, will it replace your good old-fashioned, my absolute favorite, the Fast Cap old standby tape? This is one of the greatest tapes ever made. Probably not, but it will add a ton of things you can do with a tape measure. Out of the box, what you get is the tape measure itself, the digital part we'll talk about while they're separate. You get a carrying case, a charger, and the instructions, and it's very well packaged. Like, this is next level packaging. It just makes it feel like a premium product because you paid a premium price. I'm glad they did the extra mile here with the packaging. Now, to charge it up, it's USB-C, so you shouldn't have any issues charging this anywhere, and the battery life lasts a long time. I've been using this for hours, so usually like 6 or 8 hours yesterday just playing with it in the shop, and now to this morning I'm still using it for another 40 minutes, and it's still doing really well. This thing is absolutely amazing. First and foremost, you can use it as a standard tape measure, and it's a high quality, really easy to read tape measure, and it does come in metric for those who love metrics as much as a lot of you do, and you let me know in the comments. But we here in America, we use imperial or standard measurements. So that's what we're using. That's what I bought, but you can buy that. Now, one thing I love about this tape measure is that it is modular. And what that means is you can take them apart. The digital part comes off. So if you break for any reason, maybe something falls on this tape measure or you drop it and it breaks for whatever reason, it's a tape measure. So you know how tape measures are. If it breaks, you can replace this part and not have to replace the digital part. I think they made a great choice by making these separate. And they go together very easily and it snaps into place. It is well made. It feels really well in the hand and it's not overly bulky. You would think something like this would be heavy. It's not. It does include a belt clip that you can easily hook on a pocket or a belt. But the star of the show is going to be the display and everything that you can do with this tape measure other than simple measuring. Now, this tape measure has controls on top and on the sides, and I'm fixing to show you what they all do. Well, on the side here is memory, so if you have, for one, anytime you hit the enter key on a measurement, it will save that measurement, and it'll also send it to the app if you have the app installed on your phone. The app will save like 300 measurements, and you can rename them and things, so you can keep up with what his measurements goes with what. But on this device, I think it's 20 or 30 that it'll save that you can cycle through. And you'll see, yep, 30, 1 out of 30, and then you can cycle through those. And it keeps up with both regular measurements as well as the laser measurements depending on what you're measuring. We'll talk about the laser measurements in a minute. If at any time you want to go back to the home screen, just tap the power button and it goes back. And speaking of the power button, it powers off by itself after a minute or so, and then just powering it back on, it only takes about 3 or 4 seconds for it to be ready to use, maybe not even that long. So I like that it doesn't have a long boot up time. This is a 2-inch OLED screen, so it's very easy to read, very high contrast, and you can change the display in multiple ways. This is a settings button. It'll get you into the settings menu, and you can see there, this plus button will cycle you through all of the settings, so you can just go through and figure out what you want. And we'll go into the display first. Anytime you want to go into something, you just hit the enter key, and then you can see we can choose from 6 different display modes. We can do the tape measure like you just saw, but one of my favorites is this one where we have the measurements on screen, and anytime I hit that button, it will save the measurement, it will save the measurement, it will save the measurement. So if I'm taking multiple measurements here, I can keep them all right on the screen, up to 3 at a time. Actually more than that, because every time you hit it, it'll just put a new one in there, but they're all in the memory, remember? If at any point you're ready to clear those out, you simply just hit the power button and it erases them 1 at a time. I'm glad they did that so that you don't erase all of them, because if I make a measurement and I save it, and then I save it, and then I save, well, I messed up. I don't erase all my measurements, I just erase the last one. So that's awesome. And there's 4 other display modes that you can see here that you can use, depends on what you prefer. You can also change the units here. You can do meters, feet and inches, millimeters and centimeters. So just depend on what you're used to measuring in or what you like measuring in, you can pick anything you want here. That 2 blue line just means it's connected to the app, and it's very easy to connect. The instructions are very well laid out, so it's very easy for you to check the manual and shows you how to get the app and everything. Speaker icon just turns on key beeps, and there's another function that I use it in, which we'll talk about, but mostly I leave that off. You can also flip the display, so if you don't want to look at it in that orientation, it can be flipped upside down so that you can read it from either direction. There's also 2 color themes here, depending on which one you prefer. The laser that's going left and right here, this is where you're going to take your measurement from, or where the device is taking the measurement from. You can change that from the center of the line, the front of the line, or the rear of the line, because the line is maybe a 32nd thick. So it just depends on what you prefer. I like it on the back. You can also use the offset. So if for some reason it's out of calibration, you can calibrate it here. And we're talking down to the thousandth of an inch. But if you use millimeters, you can do like less than millimeters. You can just really get really fine detail with it. Mine was calibrated perfectly out of the box. I checked it on a 4-foot board that I knew was exactly 4 foot. Used it. Perfect. It lined up perfect, so I didn't have anything to do here, but you can adjust that if you need to. One thing to note is that button changes where the measurement's going to be taken from. It'll cycle from the front of the device to the back to the middle. So you get that laser line that's going perpendicular there, or it's just going to go from back to front. Where that's important is if you're measuring something and you butt it against the wall, you want it to measure from the back of this device and not the front, or it's going to throw it off, right? So that's where you can set that up. It just depends on where you want this to measure from. There is an enter key on the right and on the top, so depending on how you're holding it, you can always access where you can save your measurements and things like that. When you're on the measuring screen, if you start tapping this button with the 4 dots, then you start cycling through all of the functions this has, and it has a bunch, and you'll be using a bunch of these if you buy this. Now, it does angles in different ways. We also has a stakeout function, which allows you to, what I'm assuming, I didn't use this part, but I'm assuming like if you're laying out a deck or something like that, it will tell you exactly where you could put your posts and things like that, depending on what you've inputted into the tape measure. You can also do point-to-point, indirect height, indirect length, which we'll talk about, volume, area, which is amazing, continuous measuring, and single length, as well as line split. Now, continuous measurement is what you think it is. You point it at something, it's using the laser. If you move away from it, it continuously moves the measurement or keeps track of that measurement. If you move forward, then it will take away from that measurement. It's real-time measuring using the laser, which is really handy to have. Now, the single length measurement is what when you power it up, that's what it's going to be in every time, and that's what I use most often. It's like when you just taking a measurement on a board or taking a measurement on the wall or anything like that, that's what they're talking about. And it doesn't matter what display is on there, you can still save those 3 in a row, but that's the single measurement. You can also use that with the laser. I did this on a 4-foot board, and you just line it up with the edge of the board, put something down there to block it, hit the laser, it tells you exactly how long that is. It's pretty cool. And it's dead accurate, down to the 30 seconds, even with the laser, so that's pretty cool. The screen is so easy to read, especially if you're getting older like me and you need to just be able to see your measurements. That screen's gonna be absolutely huge for you because it's very high contrast. It's extremely easy to see exactly where that laser's lining up. Now, there is a tiny bit of learning curve here on operating this and figuring out all the settings. It took me about 30 minutes just sit down playing with it, so it's not huge. And I'm not the smartest guy in the room, so if I can do it, you can do it. And when you measure things, looking exactly where that laser is, if you're trying to measure exactly on that laser, is a little bit more nuanced than just looking at the mark and making the mark, right? But you'll get used to it and you figure out which side of the line you're measuring to, because you can do that in the settings, the front, the middle, or the back. I don't know, I can't not say enough about this. I'm impressed. Should I order the Recon version and see if theirs stacks up? Now, one of my favorite functions of this tape measure is line split. And what line split does is you can use that to segment boards or anything really. So if I have a board that I'm going to lay out for, say, a panel glue up, and I want to put my dominoes at a certain length apart, or dowels or anything like that, you just go into line split mode. It's going to ask you how many segments. The plus sign or the 0 sign will cycle through those. So if I want 5 segments on this board, I'm going to hit 5, and then it's going to go into mode. From there, I'm just going to use the measuring tape just like I normally would. Take my measurement. This is 3'3", and I've got it sitting on the back side of that board. We're going to hit enter, and then it automatically calculates everywhere you're going to need to put a segment or a mark or a dial or whatever you're doing. If you're building a dog kennel and you want so many bars per feet or whatever, it'll segment those out every single time for you. You don't have to do anything. This is where this is so awesome. Or if you're doing handrails and you're putting risers every so often, like there's tons, like millions of different ways you could use this, and I absolutely love it. All right, this is where I like to turn the key beam back on because it will give you an audible signal every time you're getting close to that segment. Check this out. So you can see it says 5 of 5. We're in the 5th segment because we're all the way down. When you start moving it back, it shows you a left arrow to the 4th segment. When you hear the beep, you know you're close. there's a red arrow on screen that will tell you exactly where to put your mark. When you line up your laser on that, then you can take your handy dandy pencil, make a mark on that laser. That's where the first or the fourth segment in this case is. Move it down. It's literally that easy. I love that. You don't have to do any math, any calculations. This does it for you. And speaking of math, my next favorite feature of this tape measure. If you're like me, or even if you're not like me, and you don't like doing math, and especially, I know metric people, I know, but fractions sometimes are confusing, and it's hard to keep up with everything and add in real time what you need to add up. But on this tape measure, it does it for you. All you have to do is push that plus button until you see a symbol. This is subtraction, this is addition. So you just tap it, and now, as I move out, if I do 11 7/8 and I push the enter key, it puts that on there. We need to add 1 foot 8 inches and 3/8. Ba-bam. 2 foot 8 inches and 1/4. It automatically adds that for you. And if you wanted to keep going and add more to that measurement, it'll do that as well. It'll just keep doing it as many times as you want. It's going to do all the math for you. I absolutely love that. And if you wanted to take off measurements, you're just going to push and hold the plus sign, and it's going to subtract those measurements. Super cool. There's a couple of angle features here I really like. Now, first and foremost, you can use this just like a line level, like you've seen in any other line level tool that you got. It will mount to a tripod. That's what that hole or screw hole on the back is for. You can set this up, and then you can hang cabinets or whatever you want, pictures, anything you want in your house. You need that line level on the wall. This is going to do it. That's why I like that. It's a cool feature. And you can also tilt this to any degree you want if you need to do that as well. It also has what they call included angle. And that is when you have this setting on the surface. It'll calibrate. It takes about 6 or 7 seconds. And then from there, once it's calibrated, when you tilt this, it will calculate the angle on a flat surface like this. Where you may mess up though is if you move the back of this the same, if it doesn't keep the same pivot point, then it may throw it off. So you would need a way to anchor that so that it doesn't. It's not something I would use often, but it's cool that it's in there, I guess. Now we also have point-to-point measuring, and all that is a laser measuring. So if I wanted to measure the wall behind you, I'm just gonna go into the point-to-point measurement. I don't know if you can see it. Chris, zoom in. Say hi, Chris. We might can see it right there, but in the naked eye, it's very easy to see. Right above this YouTube sign where you should subscribe so that number goes up. But all you do with the point-to-point is you're going to point it at a point, doesn't matter where, and push the button.
You push the button, Max.
And then you're going to move it to the other point that you want to measure to and push the button again, and it's going to give you the reading. In my case, it's showing 18 feet, 8 inches. One key thing is if you don't have this on the tripod, you need to basically stand at the exact same spot, push the button and move it. Try not to move it left or right or it's going to skew it off. But if you're just doing quick and dirty measurements, maybe you're trying to get measurements of a wall or a floor or something like that, this is going to come in handy. We also have indirect height. So if I was measuring the height of the green door here, point it at the bottom, again, keep it positioned about the same place, move it to the top. It's 6 foot 8 inches. I measure with my tape measure just to check, it's 6 foot 8 inches. So this indirect height works well if you're just trying to get the height of something. Indirect length is very cool because if I was measuring here in the floor and I needed to measure to the garage door, but there was a piece of equipment in the way or tree or whatever, all you gotta do is tilt it up, it'll go up and over it and you still get that measurement. It's pretty cool to have. But again, when you tilt it up, it does move away from the bottom of this, so it may skew it just a little bit, but it's kind of cool to have. Volume feature, if you need to get the volume of anything for whatever reason you're doing that, you tell me why you would do that, but maybe you're doing epoxy river tables and you want to get the volume that you're going to need to pour in there. You measure the length, the width, and the depth. This is going to calculate the volume for you, so that's going to make your life easier. If I need to get the volume of this cabinet back here, you can use either the standard tape measure or the laser to do this. Doesn't matter. Every time you measure length, hit the button, measure height, hit the button, measure width, hit the button, or any combination of the three, and then it's going to calculate that volume exactly, which is pretty cool. And then of course you got area as well, so if I needed to know the square foot of this room, I could calculate that extremely easy. Typically you're going to use the laser for this because this tape measure is only 12 foot long, which is perfect for the shop in my opinion, but the laser goes up to 330 feet. So if you need a 330 foot by 330 foot shot, congratulations, you've won. But you can put this against the wall on one side, shoot the laser to the other, shoot the laser on the opposite wall, ba-bam, you've got the area, square footage figured out. Or if you need to figure out how much paint you're gonna need for the wall, stuff like that, this is where that's gonna come in handy, just a quick and dirty calculation, very easily. What's crazy is I haven't even scratched the surface of everything this tape measure can do. It's a pretty good tape too. We're looking at 86, 90 something inches of full extension there. I like that I can extend it out and it stays unless I push the bottom button, which retracts it. It's just amazing. It really is. It's a cool invention. This is probably one of the coolest tools that I have seen in recent memory as far as how advanced it is and how much is packed into such a small package. It's just impressive and it works extremely well and it's well made. I've just been impressed, very impressed with this. Now, here's the catch. It costs a lot. This thing is $300 at the time of this filming if you pre-order. Pre-order takes about 4 to 6 weeks, so if you want one, you better go ahead and order. I ordered mine about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and it just come in a few days ago. The reason being is they're making these in batches as they get the pre-orders, but you also get to save $100 if you're a little bit patient. If you want to wait for them to have them in stock all the time, you're probably going to pay the full price at $399. Right now, you can get them for $299. So, now, will everybody go out and buy this? So does everybody need this? Of course not. Of course not. It's a $300 tape measure. But if you need it for those functions that you've seen, or you just want to have it on hand because sometimes you run into stuff and it's cool to have stuff on hand if you have the budget, this might be a great option for you. Otherwise, just get this fast cap, old standby, 16-foot tape, greatest tape measure ever made, in my opinion, and it's only about less than $10. But if you do want this and save $100, link in the description, pin comment. If you know someone or a group of someone somewhere online that would enjoy seeing this tool video, be sure and share that with them. But before you go, hit that subscribe button, or you can check out that next video. I think you're gonna like it as well.